everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sales Development Podcast and our series, CEOs in Sales Tech. Today, I'm joined by Amarpreet Kalkat. How did I do? CEO, founder of Humantic AI, and not to be confused with any of the other Humantics out there. This is the best one, and I can prove it today because I'm talking about this. So tell us about yourself. How did you get into this? And then what problem are you solving with Humantic?
David, first of all, I really appreciate you having me on the podcast today. It's a pleasure. I think we all founders learn from each other. So hopefully I'll leave the audience here with a few useful things. So Humantic AI, what do we do and how I got into it? First of all, what do we do? So we help salespeople walk in prepared into any meeting. We help ensure that they know their customers so well that they can essentially go and crack any deal. So we focus on the people. So we call it buyer intelligence. Yeah, compared to, for example, think of it as what Zoom Info is for account intelligence to know more about the company. We are for people. So we're very, very focused on people. Our core is a behavior prediction, personality prediction engine. So it brings out these insights that were essentially, in some ways, impossible right before, but now they are not. So that's Humantic AI. It's simply put, significantly deep dive into your customers, understanding them, so that at the end of the day, you can become what we call a buyer first seller. So someone who understands their customers and puts them first.
Okay. And is this a problem that you were having, coming into this? How did you get into this business?
So I think a couple of things came together. So in fact, what became Humantic AI, it started as part of my earlier startup. This is, you'll be surprised to hear, or maybe a lot of people claim it these days, but this is my second AI startup. So I've been doing AI startups for around 10 years now. So be a bit longer than most people. So as part of the last one, that was more focused on marketing analytics, etc. One of the things, I think one of our product managers actually read a research paper way back in 2015 or so, how you could predict people's behavior simply by looking at their social activity, their language use, and so on and so forth. So it was like literally academic research. No one had built out something like this in real life. So we said, oh, this is interesting. We can really, really understand consumers and how they think. So that's where it started. And then by 2018, 19, as part of that startup, we found ourselves using it for selling, for hiring. Around that time, a couple of other startups doing something similar started popping up. And as I went deeper into the sales rabbit hole, I consider myself a student of selling now. Spent the last 5 years or so, I've been on my learning journey. So then the fact that DISC and personality is a very big part of sales approach. I don't know if you're familiar, but most enterprise sellers tend to be familiar. So that was the aha moment. We said, oh, wow, we can predict people's behavior, their DISC profile, their ocean profile. Now, here's people trying to guess DISC profiles of their prospects and then using that to decide what approach to take and how to sell and how not to sell. We can turn that guesswork into a science. Yeah, so that's essentially how it all came together. Launched it. It just started working. Been 3 years on that journey now. And I think we're at a place where we have seen good level of adoption. I think we've still got a long way to go. We'll talk about some of our customers. I think we're seeing a clear need in the market, if not significant demand, because people didn't even know that this was possible. So, but it is.
Yeah. And how do you do that? It seems since COVID, most sales has gone online. We're doing a lot more inside sales. And all you really know of somebody is the screen that you have and their email address, maybe their LinkedIn page. And so and there's multiple buyers, players in the space. There's like 5 or 6 different people that are involved in the decision making, especially when you get to a bigger size sale. So how
Nailed
can
it.
you, and because you go into the sales call, you don't know anything about the person really. I mean, it's just they're just a name and a screen.
Right. No, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. So for anything to really work, I think there's always a right time. You could be too early, you could be too late. And without a doubt, the digital shift, right, the online selling shift post-COVID is the biggest driver for Humantic AI because, as you said, once your deals start becoming larger, once trust and relationships start becoming a vital part of your selling, that's where the sellers today, it's like their world has gone from 3D to 2D, right? You were meeting people in person, sitting down, cracking a joke, watching a game, going for a dinner, grabbing a drink, and boom, here you are sitting on a screen on a Zoom call, staring the other person in the face. There's very little that we can do to really know someone, to build trust. And that's where I think Humantic AI, like as we came in and we said, hey, here's the AI predicted profile. Before you get on any call, like before you spend even a second with your prospect, before I've spent even a second with David, I have a fairly good idea what kind of a person you are. Uh, I, I think Chris Voss says the first 7 seconds are what it takes, to make an impression. Otherwise, you take 7 meetings to fix it. I know before a meeting, David, where I come in and where I have to crack a joke, where I have to start out with something witty, where I have to just shut up and be formal. Uh, and that's just the basics of it, So as you progress, there's a lot more that comes in. So yes, that is the big trigger. Knowing people really well, especially when you don't really have a chance to know them anymore, and when you're interacting with Gartner says 12 average buyers, in a buying committee these days for a large deal.
Yeah, it's so hard. I mean, I'm reading a book right now called "What's in It for Them" by a guy named Joe Polish, who's a very, very famous marketing
Love that.
guru.
Love
Yeah,
that.
you know him?
Ouch.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
no. But I
Yeah.
mean, love the concept, what's in it for them. Yes.
What's in it for them? Yeah, and he talks about this is really old school. This is taking it back. There's something that used to be called the McKay 66, and it was by a guy named Harvey McKay, and he had this form that this is going back like 30 years. You had to fill in a form about everybody that you were working that you were in a sales cycle with that had 66 data points about the person. And Harvey McKay made this famous, it was called the McKay 66. And you look at that now, fast forward to 2024, nobody would do that. It's just the world has changed so much. It's such a more fast paced world of learning all this stuff about the person. But what you're saying is you can close that gap of learning about the type of person that you're going to be interacting with on the sales call with the AI that you've applied to this problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Takes seconds. Takes
And
seconds.
what would you do? So say you finally have set up a sales meeting with someone. It's a Zoom meeting, and
Right.
you know that their name and their email address and their basic LinkedIn profile, which is
Yeah.
about as much research as most salespeople do today.
True.
And then instead you apply Humantic to this. What would be the difference?
So it, in a fundamental sense, the difference is massive. See,
Yeah.
first of all, the two, three concepts, right, that we iterate. First of all, you now are enabled. You can make a choice not to, right? And all of us make bad choices all the time, so we can do that. But you are now enabled to put your buyer first rather than you first. See, most salespeople, you've been doing it for a while, sell in what I would call a me first style of selling. And not because they want to, because that's how they've been taught. Hey, we're training you on MedPick, follow MedPick, go and ask these discovery questions, qualifying, blah, 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 right? It is my approach. I sell the way I am supposed to be selling. What if you are now meeting a person with whom that's the wrong approach? So that's the number one thing. So you come in into Humantic app. It's very easy to use, just pops up alongside LinkedIn, a browser extension, shows you what kind of a person you're meeting, shows you how compatible or different you are. So if you are someone who's, that stereotypical, loud, extroverted, slightly aggressive, right, salesperson, but now it shows that on the other side is someone who's very specific, needs like exact information, has a lot of questions and doubts, maybe not very vocal, right? You have all kind of buyers. You now have a choice to actually take that approach and say, hey, look, David, I'm here. I understand you have many questions. I'm here to help you understand those. Once you're ready, we will move forward, right? Rather than blah, 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 my product this, my product that, everyone loves us. This is the coolest thing since sliced bread. That's not the right thing for everyone. Some people it is. So that is the fundamental difference. And now the way we built the product, it's designed as an assistant, to like senior sellers, big deal sellers. As you move forward through the sales funnel, through the steps, I'll give you a real example. At a big deal, Fortune 200 deal. Great place, everything is looking good. We're all set to go. We are stuck in the final stages, legal procurement, the usual drill. We get stuck on a technicality, like literal technicality. And it's a technicality that you can't wish away. So here we are. Well, luckily, our team manages to find kind of a workaround saying, you don't have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. By then, I realized my champions losing, patience a little bit, steam a little bit, if you will, right? We've been at it, as you can imagine, for months now. It's a large opportunity. Now, at that point, what do I do to re-energize my champions' confidence, right? Because they know the product is good, but they are really struggling, with a bureaucracy, you could say, on their side. So now Humantic AI tells me that this person, what in this, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it says they're a yellow, eye kind of a personality, very relationship driven, very trust driven, very people oriented. Also, where they focus, on the personal aspects a lot. So with this person now, with the confidence that these insights gave me, I take an approach where I say, hey, John, I would love to work with you. Like that is the approach that I take, that I want to work with you. We want to work with you. He was a fantastic person, no doubt, so it is real. But out of all the things I could have said, hey, we are number two on G2 sales AI. I could have said that. Our average impact on revenue is 16%. There's enough case studies. Our best customers have reported 37, 38% acceleration. Out of all the things I say, look, I want to work with you. It's just going to be so much fun. And I know this has been a little bit hard, but I'm hoping that you can make this last notch, last push. We will bring the absolute very best. You can count on me. I'll always be there. And guess what happens? Right. So otherwise, I would have probably taken whatever was my usual approach. And like our usual approach is just to show the results, because the results are very strong. They're very strong. So that's a example for you right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's we try to apply the same sales approach to every person, and that's our approach. But each person is their own unique, snowflake out in the world, and there are frameworks like DISC where you can get to know a person's unique style, and without spending a ton of time trying to fill out forms and do it an old school way. Now we have AI which can help you to identify that, and then you make it actionable. And I think that as a buyer, I think something that's come up a lot is the death by demo. People just you get the meeting and they get on and they don't ask any questions. They don't try to get to know you, at all or what you're trying to achieve. They just go straight into the, PowerPoint deck and blah,
Right.
blah, blah about a bunch of stuff that's irrelevant to you.
Yeah. That is exactly how it is. And it
Yeah.
doesn't need to be. Like we have an advisor, his name is Barry. And Barry's like, look, when this technology wasn't possible, it made sense, that you do what you did and you try your best to just guess what what could be done better. And the fact is the top sellers, the best of the best, they are naturally good at it, right? They adapt significantly, but most of us are not. That's the fact. Most of us are not as good or not even good sometimes. So when AI is there to assist you, now, we're not perfect. This is a pretty hard to do thing. We're right about 8 times out of 10, 8 to 9 times out of 10. But that's not bad at all, because that still means that you will be getting it right 8 to 9 times. It still is a significant difference to your quotas, to your buyer's experience, and just the overall success that both parties see with each other.
Yeah. And I mean, 8 out of 10 is a lot better than 0 out of 10, which is what I
Absolutely.
see in the market. Now, what happens if I'm not at the computer? I know that there's
Right.
still people out there who go and actually meet with people and
Right.
say, next week I'm going to a conference and,
Yeah.
I'm going to meet a bunch of people. Is there a way to apply this in a face-to-face setting?
It's doable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna, of course, need some instrument, if you will. But what's made us really popular, I spoke about that earlier, is that we make it very, very easy. Like in this particular case, you have three options. Yeah, roughly. So one option is like we have something called a calendar integration, where once you connect your calendar, if a meeting is on your calendar, like in this case, it might not be, I get it. But if a meeting is on your calendar, 30 minutes before a meeting, you get an email saying, hey, Amarpreet, you're going to be like, I got a mail about you. You're going to be meeting David and A and B and C today. Here are their profiles. So you could be on the go. You, of course, have your phone, right? Everyone has their phone on them for the most part. So that's one way.
Hmm.
Second, we have a mobile, app, where you can go and simply look up someone by their name. You just simply say, David Dulany, Tenbound, and it'll take 10 to 15 seconds. It'll pull up your profile right on your, mobile device at that point of time.
Okay.
So those are a couple of things that you could do even if you're not on your computer. And a lot of our users, they do it often enough. Like I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago in Boston, and there was an AWS event, and conversation moved to, hey, what do you do? And I just pulled out my phone, pulled up a couple of profiles, showed the people, and um, I think we have a meeting with them coming up in a couple of weeks. So yeah, so those are a couple of options you have, even if you're a field seller, let's say.
Nice. And so what would I do is I say I'm an inside sales person and I'm
Right,
getting ready for a big call. So I've got, three people that I've identified that are going to be on the call. Hopefully they show up.
right, right.
And I get the data report beforehand. What should I do to prepare and be ready to utilize the information?
So we have something called buying committee maps, which are exactly for a scenario like this.
Mhm.
It'll give you an aggregate of all the people on the call. For example, it'll tell you that the people on the call, they are very high on results and impact. So when you go into that meeting, then that's where you focus. Sometimes you have a mix of people, and it might say, hey, look, these four people are very, very result oriented, but these two people, they tend to be skeptical. Their need for information is very high. So now the majority is results oriented. And I, of course, look at, who are my decision makers, because they matter the most. So champion decision makers. So I take the results oriented approach, but I turn around to the skeptic, in the room, and I say, Tim, I know we might be moving a little fast here. I know you're wondering if this is really the right solution. Can we pause here and see what questions are clouding your mind right now? And Tim's like, oh, this guy's reading my mind, right? And Like Gartner has a data point. It says when you can make people feel comfortable with you, when you can make them feel that you understand them, you close 30% more deals. Because that's what it comes down to. Tim turns around to others and say, I am not too sure about their product yet, but I think these are the right kind of people. I think so. So you are able to tackle the group because you understand the group dynamic, that the group think behavior, but you also know which individuals lie where you need to slow down when you address them, where you need to turn around and say, David, we're gonna make sure that you bloody kick ass with this. And there's always a person in the group, who wants to hear words exactly
Wants to
like
kick
this.
ass.
Absolutely, because like someone like you, I mean, I've seen your profile. If I was selling to you, I would probably, here's a tip, right? I would probably throw in a couple of, such words, and odds are I'll take a bet that you're gonna love that one.
I love that one. You got me. You got me right there. I want to kick ass. That is so, and it's so interesting because I think in this digital world of ones and zeros and Zoom meetings that we forget that we're still feeling, emotional beings, and we're still organic beings, and I think that over the last few years it's all become numbers and percentages, and trying to again uh, sell in one particular way to everybody without that buyer intelligence.
That's the problems. See, we might make it to be that way, but the reality remains that people buy emotionally and justify rationally. That is still the reality, right? So
Mm-hmm.
people use data and numbers often to um, back up, whatever their feelings are. Um, so the need to connect emotionally, that's not changed. That's not changed at all, right? While we can throw all the numbers at it, we can bring the ROI story. Yes, that is important. Yes, people are more efficiency focused today. So they want to see ROI a lot more than they wanted to see 2 years ago. But the fact remains that unless it's a very transactional sale, right? Unless you're buying something for, I don't know, $10, you go to a bar and you're buying a beer, it doesn't matter how the server is, whether it's server A or server B. And maybe it matters a little bit, but if the same thing was, you're walking into a dealership and buying a, I don't know, $30,000 car or a $50,000 car, odds that you will buy it from someone that you don't like, that you don't trust, not very high. Not very high.
We're still the same. And I can think of a use case on my own, experience where, CFOs never used to come on sales calls for Tenbound. And all of a sudden about a year ago, they started to pop up in the calendar invite, and I had no idea, how to speak with them because it was just, I had been doing the same, sales pitch for 5 years, and all of a sudden, and now I know, had I had the intelligence that you're talking about, I could have turned to them and said, okay, here's the data points and different things that you need in order to make a decision. Instead, I just never heard back from him again.
No, that's the thing. So we were saying, we say sell to the person, not to the persona.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone sells to the persona. See, odds are, you've got the CFO coming into a meeting. Odds are that you will stereotype the CFO, that
Yeah.
you'll say, oh, it's a CFO. They're not going to be very friendly. They'll be very focused on ROI numbers. They're going to bring the cost down. That's the stereotype. It could be right, many times, but people are better than that, right? People are not machines. Not all the people are the same. There's more to people. Some people would be just, I've met CFOs who are vastly different,
Mm-hmm.
right, than that. And even when they might not be, there's a lot of nuance to them that if you understood, you much better prepared. In many ways, I won't say that you could go from a average seller to a top seller just because you use Humantic AI. But the fact is, you will move in that direction, right? So, and that's the reality. Any company you take, 80% of the revenue is being brought by 20% of the sellers, right? The ratio is roughly the same. I saw something from Pavilion. It said 17% of sellers are bringing in 79% of the revenue.
Yeah.
Why is someone so much superior than others? It is often the art that they have. And something like this, we're very different from other AI solutions. We're not about helping you do more. Most AI solutions are about, oh, you'll do faster with us, you'll do more with us, you'll write more emails, you'll do this. No, we are about better, not about more. We're about better. If anything, we're about less, right? So be more prepared, know someone better, be more effective, know exactly what they need versus the other person needs.
Yeah.
So that is the big difference. When you move from the persona to the person, you sort of moving from being an okay seller towards being a top seller.
Yeah. Well, and if you think of the persona is sort of a marketing term, for a large number of people that you're trying to, put into a box, so that you can have the right message. But really the value of a salesperson today, especially, is the person to person connection that they can make. And
That's
they're
that's
flying blind, in a lot of cases. The sales, unless they're that natural 17% that's always been around, the A players, they
yeah,
can kind of do this through some sort of
naturally.
magical formula that they have.
Yeah.
But for what about the B players and the C players? They need to be able to get this information.
But even A players, like, see, the world's changed, right? What we spoke about earlier. The
Mhm.
A player who is so good at meeting you and just making it happen
Yeah.
on, like I said, the world's gone from 3D to 2D for them, right? On Zoom, they're not the same. So
Mhm.
I often like to say that this is, what we do. And there's some other technologies like us. We're not the only one, but few focus on being better. Most, unfortunately, focus on just doing more. So you know, for those top sellers, this is like wings. Yeah, it is. You're flying. I mean, if the way you used to fly earlier, or even better for that matter, right? So you're flying. For those who are not the top sellers, in some ways they're at least like crutches, yeah, if you will. So you'll still walk, right? If you're not, or you'll walk faster rather than just walk, limping through. So, and uh, just look at all the data. I think I saw some data. Right now, 27% of sellers are hitting quota, right? So there's 73% are not hitting their quota right now. So AI can play a role. And that's really what it is. It's wings, for top sellers, and it's crutches, for those who are unfortunately not at a top spot right now.
Got it. Okay. So please, if anyone's listening to this, use Humantic before you set up a call with me, so we can talk about actual and make a connection versus just like showing me your slide deck and then, hey, do you want to buy? It's like there's it's pretty rough out there. You have your work cut out for you.
That is true. That
Yeah.
is true.
Okay, so I want to talk about the industries that are using this right now. Is it mostly tech, inside sales? Are you seeing any other sales teams that are getting a lot of value out of this?
But tech is definitely a big one. I think tech is generally a faster adopter. We understand tech, pretty well too.
Mhm.
Although for us in tech, it is not your usual Silicon Valley startups. I think we do a lot of work with larger technology companies that you might not typically call startups. So, for
Mhm.
example, our largest customer is a Fortune 10. That's our largest customer, the technology company.
Mhm.
So that's that's our largest customer. We work with quite a few companies that um, we do quite a bit of work in the technology services space. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that is because, again, the deals are very big, relationships are important. Knowing someone better can be the difference between they choosing you versus your biggest competitor. So we do quite a bit of work, in that area. Apart from that, I think it's very interesting. Like we signed a customer. Uh, they make they make some sort of tables, for industry use somewhere in the Midwest, and uh, they started using LinkedIn, I think, a couple of years ago. So just to give you an idea, now that's happening because of two things. One is, so we have a very, very close partnership with Sandler. You're probably familiar, the sales training firm. So that's one reason that people who trained on Sandler, they generally trained on Disc. They're big believers in Disc, and we are the best way to bring Disc to life. So that's one reason. But second, I think with ChatGPT, AI awareness has shot through the roof, and almost any business of any size and kind is looking at AI. And I think we are the kind of an AI that appeals even to a traditional seller, because it ties into Disc, which is typically what they believe in significantly. It is very, very easy to use, and it is focused on people and relationships and trust, unlike some of the other AI tools. So that's what we think. So technology is the big space, although not the usual Silicon Valley VC funded SaaS startup. We do some work, not some, we do a significant work there. But our biggest segment is technology, non-SaaS technology companies. Um, Pretty much all sizes, but typically they tend to be enterprise or at least large enough. There'll be a few thousand employees. I think we do less work with small companies.
It makes
And on
perfect sense.
Yeah,
And
on the other side, we have the small
yeah,
ones, yeah, traditional companies.
sure. And it's all used for inside salespeople right now, or is it a mix of
No, it's a
inside
mix.
sales and the field? Yeah.
It's a mix. Definitely, it is a mix. I'm trying to think. I would even hazard saying that our best results come in field sales. If I have to be accurate, if I have to be precise, I think our best results come in large deals. Yeah. So large deals is where we make a significant difference, like the example that I just gave you. And often they tend to be field sellers. Our average user is 38 years old.
Mhm.
So we are not a young person's as young sellers tool. Surprisingly enough, I think sometimes
That
I think,
sounds really young to me, so I'm go ahead. So,
I, I think young people are, too busy trying to find like hacks and shortcuts, and they really go for these shiny, things that are popular. So, but our average user is, like I said, on the older side. Significant percentage of our users above 40. Our best users tend to be larger deal sellers. There are enough companies where we were the first AI solution, like the first AI solution. I worked with a couple of big ones where we worked with their legal team through them drafting the AI terms of use, right? Because everyone's trying to do that. So
mhm.
that's where our best results tend to come. Inside sales, we fairly actively used. But if you ask me, I think our impact on large deal selling, whether that is field seller or whether that's inside driven, that is very significant and very relatively quick and very easy to measure as well.
Okay. So I'm trying to visualize like a 45-year-old enterprise seller is in the parking lot of the before the sales meeting, looking at his or her phone, getting the information, getting ready, preparing, and then going in. Versus I sort of visualized an inside salesperson with the thing popped out actually while they're on the call. So you're saying
Right.
both of those are happening.
Both of those are happening. I mean,
I
the
see.
field seller too, just to be clear, the field seller is not, in this case, the door-to-door seller. The field seller is like someone who's working at, an Deloitte, or an
Yeah.
Accenture or a Microsoft or a AWS.
Multi-million-dollar deal.
Right,
Okay.
right. It's in the SaaS world, it'll typically be $100,000 plus deal,
Okay.
right? And in the non-SaaS world, it will typically be hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars. So these are the people. and they are preparing for days before they go into a meeting, so they've already been doing it. But sometimes you're walking in and you don't know, or sometimes there's someone new, and that's when they're pulling their phone out. I know people who have walked into meetings with printouts, right, of the Humantic profiles. And we've had customers come in because someone else, said, "Hold on, what is this? Can I take a look? Holy shit, what is this?
How
Can
do you know
you?"
all about me?
Yes, yes.
It says,
So
Bob, mention something about the 49ers. Okay, Bob. No.
it actually does that, by the way.
Okay,
In
nice.
case
Yeah.
it is able to, figure out that, that you have an affinity like for a particular team or a particular, food or, books or whatever that is, it will actually point out and say, okay, here's, this is what you could use with this person. So, yeah.
God, that's so interesting. And then, so you're saying they saw that printout in the meeting and they go, hey, what is that? And next thing you know, you have a new lead.
It's happened. It
That's
has happened.
amazing. Okay. And so, all right, your partnership with Sandler is really interesting in that they have a huge footprint of customers and could potentially benefit from this. So, and do they send you people that might be interested, or how do you guys work together?
I mean, it's many things. We are used pretty actively, very, very actively at Sandler. Uh,
Hmm.
Sandler's enterprise sales team uses us every day.
Wow.
More than half of Sandler's franchises use us, if not every day, they're using us every week.
Yeah.
I think we are at around more than half deployed. So that's one part, right? Where they, for their own business, they're using us. And the second part, of course, is between the franchises and their enterprise team, there's a lot of customers. There's a lot of customers looking, turning to Sandler and saying, hey, you guys are the experts. We are very keen on evaluating and deploying AI. What do you recommend? And of course, they turn around and say, well, here's something that I use every day. Here's how it helped me with my last deal. So um, that's a big part of it.
Huge
We
value.
often bring in Sandler into our customers
Yeah.
from given their expertise in training and coaching. So the various, like I said, it's a fairly multi-pronged, if you will, relationship and partnership.
That is fantastic. It's a huge validation because they're such a trusted brand, in the
Yeah.
market, and they're across tech and non-tech industries. So you don't have to
Right.
be pigeonholed. And I'm obsessed with partnerships this year. That's been my big obsession. I read Nearbound by Jared Fuller, which is highly recommended. And
Yeah.
that company was just bought by Bob Moore, who the of Crossbeam, who's developing this partner ecosystem, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's way beyond just the tools to facilitate this. It's
I'm a big
exactly
believer.
what you're
I'm a,
doing with
yeah.
Sandler. It's really interesting.
Now, I'm a big, big believer in partnerships. So I think over the last 6 to 12 months, partnerships have really, shined through. They've really delivered for most companies. But I think we've gravitated towards, like, our Sandler partnership is 1.5 years old at this point of time.
Mm,
We actually have an AWS partnership that I think we need to spend more time on. That's again something massive that we haven't probably leveraged as much so far. So I think partnerships, especially for a product like us, I think that's the thing. We are a product. When people hear of us, some of them go, "Wow, this is unbelievable," and some of them go, "Wow, this is not even possible."
mm.
So working with partners, who have expertise and who, like you said, have trust, from those customers, that that really helps people at least believe and, oh, wow, this is actually even at least it's possible. And
Yeah.
then they come in and see the product and they see the results. Then they say, okay, let me speak to one or two of your customers. So, so I think, yeah, partnerships are massive, but for products that might not have as much awareness in the market, I think they're a absolute must have.
Must have, and especially with something like this, where you're you're developing something new, and so you're almost in education mode of opening people's minds to what's actually possible versus okay, there's already set players in this space, and I'm either going to take you or one of the other two. So it's just amazing. Well, Amarpreet, thank you so much for coming on the show and educating us about this amazing thing. I'm going to go over and see if I can get myself a license, because obviously I need this a lot more than most of your customers. Thank you for coming on. How do we get in touch with you if somebody wants to try it?
But Humantic AI, I think if you look for us, hopefully we'll be the first name and not the other Humanics and Humanetics and whatnot. One thing that's for sure, I am the only Amarpreet Kalkat that you'll find. So if you search for Amarpreet Kalkat, I'm Amarpreet Kalkat on LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm old enough that if you type my last name Kalkat at humantic.ai or gmail.com, it's still gonna reach me. So people say, "Well, that's cool." I said, "That's not cool. That's me just being old, because I."
Hey man, I still have a Yahoo email address. Okay, give me a break. All right.
All right.
Well,
So that's
thanks
it.
for coming on the show and walking us through it. And we'll see you very, very soon, and hopefully at the Modern Sales Pros Conference, which is next week. And
I was just taking a look at that. No, so I'm sure we'll get a chance to meet soon, and I look forward to seeing you sign up and try out the Humantic AI product. You like this? Odds are you like it.
thank you.
Sounds good, David. Thank you.